This is
elderly black woman
unacceptable. You
humiliated
need
at
to
the
fix
bank.
this
But
right
the mafia
now.
boss
Sir,
was there.
please, let me explain.
Before
You
we
need to
dive
fix
in,
this right
remember to hit
now.
that
Sir,
subscribe
please,
button
let
and
me
let me know
explain.
your city in the comments. Enjoy the story time. Dorothy Washington, 72, clutched her weathered handbag against her chest as she stood in line at Metropolitan Trust Bank. 50 years of scrubbing floors and washing dishes had bent her fingers with arthritis, but her spine remained straight with quiet dignity. For half a year, she had sacrificed everything, working double shifts, surviving on crackers and tea, walking 3 miles each way to save bus fare. Altogether, the $3,200 needed for the overdue property taxes on her modest home. It was the last physical memory of her beloved husband Samuel, who had passed 7 years ago after 49 years of marriage. The marble-floored bank bustled with professionals in designer clothing, and Dorothy felt invisible among them. She didn't notice the man in the tailored navy suit standing 4 people behind her, Antonio Romano, whose piercing dark eyes had been watching her since she nervously entered the building. When her number flashed on the digital screen, Dorothy approached the gleaming counter and placed her envelope before the young banker, Trevor Patterson. His nameplate shone under the fluorescent lights. "Good morning," Dorothy said with the warmth that came naturally to her. "I need to make a deposit, please." Trevor lifted the envelope between his thumb and forefinger as though it might contaminate him. "Cash," he said with undisguised contempt. "Do you have any concept of how much additional work cash deposits create for us?" Heat rushed to Dorothy's cheeks. "I apologize. I wasn't aware that would be a problem." Trevor exhaled dramatically and began counting the bills with exaggerated slowness. Crumpled ones, worn 5s, faded 10s, each one representing hours of Dorothy's backbreaking labor. He handled her hard-earned money like it was garbage pulled from a dumpster. "Mrs. Washington," he said, squinting at her account information on his screen, "I see your listed occupation is domestic services." He pronounced the words as though they tasted foul. "Yes, I'm a housekeeper," Dorothy replied, lifting her chin. "I've been cleaning homes for half a century." Trevor's mouth twisted into something between a smirk and a sneer. "And where exactly did someone like you acquire this quantity of cash?" "This institution maintains strict policies regarding suspicious deposits, money laundering, fraudulent activity. We take these matters very seriously." Dorothy's voice trembled, but not with fear, with righteous anger. "I beg your pardon. I earned every penny of that money honestly. I'm here to save my home from a tax auction." Trevor leaned back in his ergonomic chair, clearly relishing the moment. "Mrs. Washington, there's no need to become agitated. I'm merely performing my duties. Someone in your circumstances, arriving here with this amount of cash, it naturally raises red flags." "Someone in my circumstances," Dorothy echoed, her heart thundering against her ribs. "What exactly are you implying?" "I believe you understand my meaning perfectly," Trevor said, his voice carrying deliberately to the customers waiting behind her. "You appear here with wrinkled bills, no advance appointment, no explanation. You've maintained an account here for 3 decades with an average balance that seldom exceeds $200, and suddenly you're depositing $3,200 in cash. Surely you can appreciate why that appears suspicious." The polished floor seemed to tilt beneath Dorothy's feet. She heard whispers rippling through the line. A woman wearing a pearl necklace and expensive perfume took a deliberate step backward, clutching her designer purse closer. "I cannot process this transaction," Trevor announced, pushing the envelope back across the counter. "Not without a thorough investigation into the origin of these funds. Additionally, given your advanced age and your socioeconomic background, it's quite possible someone is exploiting you financially." "I understand perfectly well what I'm doing," Dorothy said, her voice cracking despite her best efforts. "What I understand is that you're treating me like a criminal because—" "Let's not create a disturbance," Trevor interrupted sharply. "I'm going to have to insist you leave the premises. You may return once you've obtained proper documentation explaining the source of this money." Dorothy's arthritic hands trembled violently as she reached for her rejected deposit. 50 years of honest work, of keeping her head high through poverty and prejudice, reduced to public humiliation in front of strangers. She turned toward the exit, tears finally breaking free, her carefully saved money clutched against her chest like armor that had failed to protect her. That's when a voice sliced through the murmuring crowd like a razor, cold, controlled, absolutely lethal. "Did I hear you correctly?" The voice belonged to the man in the navy suit. As he moved forward with the fluid grace of a predator, Dorothy noticed details. He appeared to be in his late 30s, with jet-black hair combed back from a face that seemed sculpted from stone, high cheekbones, strong jaw, and eyes so dark they looked almost black. Those eyes saw everything and forgave nothing. His suit probably cost more than she earned in 6 months, and he carried himself with the absolute certainty of someone who had never been denied anything. This was Antonio Romano. He hadn't planned to intervene. He'd come to the bank for discreet financial matters that required privacy. But watching that arrogant banker humiliate the elderly woman triggered something deep within him, a memory of his own grandmother, Rosa, who had worked herself to death cleaning other people's homes after his parents were killed. She'd raised him alone, taught him honor even in a dishonorable business. This woman reminded him of Rosa, and fury ignited in his chest like gasoline meeting flame. Trevor looked up and every drop of color drained from his face. "Mr. Romano, I didn't realize you were in the building. I was simply—" "Simply what?" Antonio's voice remained quiet, but it vibrated with barely contained violence. He positioned himself between Dorothy and the counter, a human shield radiating menace, publicly humiliating a 70-year-old woman for having the audacity to deposit her own money. "Sir, it's established bank policy," Trevor stammered, his previous confidence evaporating. "Bank policy?" Antonio leaned forward, and Trevor actually flinched backward. "Enlighten me. Does your bank policy specifically require publicly accusing elderly customers of criminal activity? Does it mandate treating hardworking people like they're beneath you because their clothes aren't expensive enough?" Dorothy stood frozen, barely breathing. The man defending her radiated a kind of power she'd never encountered, the kind that made the entire bank fall silent. Even the armed security guard near the door stood perfectly still, his hand nowhere near his weapon. These people weren't watching out of curiosity. They were watching out of fear. "Mr. Romano, please, if you just let me explain," Trevor tried again. "Oh, I understand perfectly," Antonio cut him off with surgical precision. "I understand this woman has remained a loyal customer of this institution for 30 years. I understand she arrived here to conduct legitimate business with legitimately earned money. And I understand that you treated her with utter contempt because you decided she wasn't worthy of basic human respect." Antonio turned to Dorothy and his expression transformed, the marble cracked, revealing something almost human underneath. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Dorothy managed a tiny nod, unable to form words. Up close, she could see a tattoo curling up from beneath his collar, could sense an aura of danger surrounding him that made every survival instinct scream warnings. Yet his eyes held only concern and, surprisingly, genuine anger on her behalf. "What's your name?" Antonio asked with unexpected gentleness. "Dorothy Washington," she whispered. "And I promise I just wanted to deposit my money. I earned it all legally. I have pay stubs at home if you need proof." "I believe you," Antonio said simply. Then he turned back to Trevor, his face hardening into that terrifying mask again. "Process Mrs. Washington's deposit. Now." "Mr. Romano, I'm not certain that's—" "I'm not requesting your opinion," Antonio interrupted. "I'm giving you instructions. Process the deposit, apologize to Mrs. Washington for your appalling behavior, and then summon your supervisor. We're going to have an extensive conversation about proper customer service protocols." Trevor's hands shook as he reached for Dorothy's money. "Yes, sir. Immediately, sir." Antonio remained at the counter like a sentry, his presence ensuring the transaction proceeded without further complications. The bills were counted again, this time with respect. The deposit slip was prepared with care. "Thank you," Dorothy whispered to Antonio. "You didn't need to do that." "Yes," Antonio replied, watching Trevor fumble with the paperwork. "I absolutely did. Nobody deserves to be treated that way, especially someone who's clearly worked hard every day of their life." "But you don't even know me," Dorothy said. Antonio finally looked at her, his expression unreadable. "I know enough." After the deposit was completed and Trevor had stammered through a humiliating apology, Antonio turned to Dorothy. "May I escort you outside, Mrs. Washington?" Dorothy hesitated. Every rational instinct told her this man was dangerous. The terror in the employee's eyes, the way even the security personnel treated him with fearful deference. He was no ordinary businessman, but he had defended her when everyone else had looked away. "Yes," she said quietly, "thank you." As they walked toward the exit, the branch manager came rushing out from her office, her face pale with panic. "Mr. Romano, I had no idea you were here today. If I'd known." "We'll discuss it," Antonio said coldly. "We'll discuss training your staff to treat every customer with dignity, particularly those who have demonstrated 3 decades of loyalty." Outside, sunshine warmed the concrete. Dorothy should have felt relief, but instead felt shaken, confused, and strangely protected by a man who terrified everyone around him. "Can I offer you a ride home?" Antonio asked. Dorothy looked at the black SUV waiting at the curb, its windows tinted so dark they looked like obsidian. A man in a dark suit stood beside it, scanning the street with professional paranoia. Everything about the scene screamed danger. "I live quite far," she said hesitantly, "in Inglewood." "Distance isn't a concern," Antonio said. "Please allow me." Against every ounce of common sense, Dorothy nodded. "All right, thank you, Mr. Romano." "Antonio," he corrected gently. "Please call me Antonio." The SUV's luxurious interior enveloped Dorothy, the leather softer than anything she'd known. Antonio sat beside her, surprisingly close. "You really didn't need to do this," she insisted, still feeling awkward. 3 miles in 90-degree heat, absolutely not. Gathering her nerve, Dorothy asked, "Antonio, why did that banker look so terrified of you?" "I have business interests that make me influential," Antonio replied carefully, listing import, export, real estate, restaurants. He was technically accurate, he owned legitimate businesses, but he omitted the truth of his organized crime empire. Something about Dorothy made him strive for a fraction of honesty. "You must be extraordinarily successful," Dorothy observed. "I've been fortunate." "No," Dorothy said with surprising firmness. "Successful, fortune is chance, success is effort and choice." Antonio genuinely smiled, a rarity, a remarkably wise distinction. "I've had 72 years to figure things out," she hesitated. "Why did you help me, really? I'm nobody important." Antonio's voice was weighted. "You're wrong. You're a woman who saved $3,000 on a housekeeper's salary. That takes discipline and character most people I know, people with millions, don't possess." Tears, different from the humiliation at the bank, threatened to spill. "That's incredibly kind." "It's the truth. My grandmother raised me. She worked 3 jobs cleaning houses. When I saw that banker treating you that way, it reminded me of every time someone looked down on her." Antonio's hands clenched. She collapsed scrubbing a kitchen floor. Heart attack. She was 64. "I'm so sorry." "So am I every day." Dorothy explained the $3,000 was for property taxes on the house her husband, Samuel, left her. 49 years of marriage in one small house. If I didn't pay the taxes, the city would auction it off. "You shouldn't have to work that hard at your age," Antonio said, anger creeping in. "Shouldn't doesn't pay bills, Antonio. I do what needs to be done, just like your grandmother." The SUV stopped at Dorothy's modest, meticulously maintained house in Inglewood. "Antonio, I don't know how to properly thank you." "No thanks necessary, But Dorothy, may I ask you to allow me to help you? I could arrange better employment, higher pay. No, Dorothy cut him off firmly. I've made it this far on my own terms. I won't start accepting charity now. Antonio studied her, respect visible in his eyes. I understand, but take my card, in case you ever need anything, not charity, just someone who considers himself in your debt. You're not in my debt. You reminded me why I do what I do, Antonio said cryptically. That's worth more than you can understand. As she stepped out, Antonio called, Dorothy, that banker will be unemployed by the end of the day, and the branch manager will be making a substantial donation to an elderly care charity. Dorothy turned back, shocked. You can arrange that. Antonio's smile turned cold. I can arrange a great many things, Dorothy. Some of them are even legal. The attempted joke fell flat. Dorothy finally understood. The man who protected her was also profoundly dangerous. Who are you really, Antonio? Someone who believes in respect, Antonio answered, and someone who never forgets either kindness or cruelty. As the SUV pulled away, Dorothy clutched the heavy business card. She knew she should throw it away, but a deeper part of her realized Antonio Romano had just become irrevocably intertwined with her life. 3 weeks had passed, yet Dorothy hadn't called Antonio. His card remained in her purse, a relic of a strange, powerful day. She'd moved her account, finding a community bank where kindness was standard, but fate, as always, intervened. Working a charity fundraiser at the Henderson estate in Lincoln Park, Dorothy was arranging canapes when she heard Mrs. Henderson's delighted voice. Mr. Romano, how wonderful! Your donation is extraordinarily generous. Dorothy's hands froze, a common name, she told herself. But when she turned, he stood in the kitchen doorway, Antonio Romano, immaculate in a black suit, radiating power. His surprise melted into something like relief. Dorothy, he murmured. Antonio, she breathed, what are you doing here? I could ask you the same. I work here. Mrs. Henderson appeared, eyes bright with curiosity and calculation. You two know each other. We've met, Antonio said smoothly, never taking his eyes from Dorothy. Mrs. Washington assisted me recently. I've been hoping to properly express my gratitude. Glowing, Mrs. Henderson insisted. Dorothy, dear, take your break. Mr. Romano would appreciate your company. Alone on the back terrace, Dorothy cut to the chase. You don't need to do this. I'm working. I'm genuinely pleased to see you, Antonio countered. You didn't call. No, I didn't think it would be appropriate. Why not? Dorothy studied him. I'm not naive, Antonio, I know what you are. And what is that? His voice was perfectly neutral. Dangerous, she said quietly. Powerful, someone who exists in a world I don't understand and don't want to be part of. You're not wrong, he acknowledged, leaning against the railing. But I respect you. I value what you represent. What do I represent? Dignity, honesty, the strength of choosing to live honorably even when easier paths exist. You could have those things, she observed, if you chose different work. Genuine regret crossed his face. It's far too late for me. I made my choices long ago, but I can recognize true worth when I see it. Before she could reply, chaos erupted inside, shouting, glass shattering, a scream. The philosophical man vanished, replaced by something cold and lethal. Antonio pulled out his phone. Marco, Henderson Estate now. His eyes locked on Dorothy. Stay here, do not go inside. Her heart hammered, but she couldn't abandon the guests. Dorothy followed him toward the house. The great room was a nightmare. 4 masked men with guns demanded valuables from the cowering guests. Antonio stood in the center, utterly calm, the weapons aimed at him. You have 5 seconds to leave, he commanded, his voice absolute. One robber laughed nervously. Who the hell are you? The reason you're about to experience the worst night of your lives, Antonio replied evenly. 4 seconds. The front door exploded inward. 6 men in dark suits, Antonio's security, poured in with military precision, surrounding the robbers instantly. "Weapons down, on the floor. Now," Antonio ordered. His authority was terrifying and absolute. From the kitchen doorway, Dorothy watched. This was Antonio Romano's true world: violence, raw power, and life-and-death decisions made in heartbeats. After the police left, Mrs. Henderson's effusive thanks were brushed aside. "Glad everyone's safe," Antonio said, his eyes finding Dorothy. In his gaze she saw not fear for himself, but raw terror for her disregard of his order to stay away. Later in the kitchen, Antonio found her cleaning glass. "You didn't listen." "I'm not good at following orders," she agreed. "A character flaw." His expression turned grave. "Dorothy, this was targeted. My enemies wanted to send a message. Connection to me means danger. Your life could be in jeopardy simply for talking to me." "Then why did you approach me at the bank?" she asked. "Because I couldn't stop myself," he admitted, frustrated. "Seeing you treated that way made me angrier than I've been in years. I don't know, Dorothy. I honestly don't know what I'm doing." "You're trying to be good," she said softly, "in a world that won't let you." "Something like that." "You should leave. Your world and mine, they don't mix. Today proved that." "You're right," Antonio agreed, yet made no move to leave. "But if you ever need anything at all, you call me. Promise me." "I can't. Calling you invites your world into mine, and I've worked too hard to have everything destroyed by violence." He nodded, wounded. "I understand. Take care of yourself, Dorothy Washington." As he walked away, she felt a tightening in her chest. She'd done the safe thing. Why did it feel so wrong? 2 weeks later, Dorothy's world shattered. Grabbed outside her home, she woke tied to a chair in a warehouse. A man, Victor Santino, stepped into the light. "Antonio Romano's latest pet project," Santino sneered. "We know Romano's taken an interest. That makes you valuable leverage. He'll pay dearly for your return or watch you die." For hours, Dorothy sat in terror as they made threatening videos for Antonio, striking her just enough to make the point. Then came the sound of gunfire, shouting. The warehouse erupted. The door burst open and Antonio stormed in like an avenging angel, his face a mask of primal fury. His men moved with lethal efficiency, dismantling Santino's crew. "Get away from her!" Antonio's roar shook the warehouse. He was at her side in seconds, cutting her bonds, lifting her into his arms. "I've got you," he murmured against her hair. "You're safe now." Dorothy could only bury her face against his chest and weep. Later in his SUV, wrapped in his jacket, she asked, "How did you find me?" "I've had people watching your house since the party," Antonio admitted, jaw clenched. "I knew Santino would try something. I should have protected you better." "This isn't your fault." "Yes, it is," he countered fiercely. "I endangered you the moment I involved myself in your life." "But you didn't stay away." "No," Antonio agreed softly. "I didn't." "Antonio, I can't live in constant fear because someone might use me to hurt you." "I know, that's why I'm offering you a choice." "What choice?" "I can arrange a new life. New identity, new city, enough money so you'll never work again. Complete disconnection from my world. You'll be safe." "And the alternative?" "You stay," Antonio said simply. "Under my protection, in my world. It means bodyguards, armored vehicles, secure properties. Danger will always be close, but so will I." Dorothy was silent. Safety and anonymity, or danger, and this strange connection with a man who looked at her like she was light itself. "I won't run," she finally said. "I won't let fear steal my life here, but if I stay, I need complete honesty, all of it. No more polite fictions." Antonio nodded slowly. "The truth, I control most organized crime operations in the Midwest. Drugs, gambling, construction rackets, political corruption. I've killed people, ordered executions. I'm not a good man, Dorothy. I'm a criminal, a very dangerous one." "Are you trying to frighten me away?" "Yes, because you deserve better than me." Dorothy reached out and took his hand. "Maybe I do, But sometimes we get what we choose, and I'm choosing to believe that a man who respects honest work, who was terrified I'd be hurt, that man has something worth believing in. I've spent 72 years playing it safe. Perhaps it's time I did something reckless." Antonio smiled genuinely for the first time. "Then I promise you this, no one will ever disrespect you again. No one will ever harm you while I draw breath." "That's a dangerous promise." "I'm a dangerous man, but for you I'll be whatever you need." As the SUV approached a secure brownstone, Dorothy realized Antonio was wrong about one thing. He was a good man trapped in a bad life, and maybe she could help him remember that. "Antonio," she said, "thank you for respecting me enough to tell the truth." "Thank you for trusting me despite knowing it," he replied, guiding her inside. 6 months later, Dorothy, 73 and taking online business management courses, sat in Antonio's penthouse office. She was now his community liaison, overseeing his charitable foundations and community investments. "I expected you to refuse the position," Antonio said from his desk. Dorothy smiled. "Why would I refuse the opportunity to ensure your legitimate businesses benefit the communities they operate in?" She had become his conscience, his connection to the values his grandmother had taught him. Marco entered with a young, frightened employee named Sarah. "Boss, her manager's stealing and threatening staff." Dorothy immediately took the lead. "Come sit down, sweetheart, tell us everything." As Sarah spoke, Dorothy watched Antonio's fury at the abuse of power. When Sarah finished, Antonio promised, "That manager will be terminated today. All stolen money will be returned with interest, and you'll receive a promotion with a substantial raise. If anyone in any of my businesses ever makes you feel threatened or powerless again, you come directly to me or to Mrs. Washington. Understood?" "Thank you," Sarah whispered, tears of relief streaming down her face. After Sarah left, Antonio asked, "Dorothy, do you regret it? Accepting my protection, living in this world?" She considered her life, complicated, unconventional, but full of purpose. She'd guided millions toward genuine good, and she'd found a profound, unexpected friendship with him. "No," she finally said, "I don't regret it at all." "Do you regret that I helped you at the bank that day?" "That was the best decision I've made in years," he confessed. "Even though I make you donate thousands to charity monthly," she teased. "Especially because of that. You make me better, Dorothy. You remind me that power should protect, not just control. Someone has to keep you honest." "As honest as a mob boss can be," Antonio amended wryly. "It's a work in progress," Dorothy agreed with a warm smile. The next morning, Antonio called her. "Turn on the news, Channel 7. The broadcast showed Trevor Patterson, the banker who'd humiliated her, being led away in handcuffs for embezzlement and fraud. "I had nothing to do with his arrest," Antonio said, satisfaction clear. "The FBI had been investigating for months. I simply ensured they examined his interactions with elderly clients more carefully." "You can do that. Just contact the FBI. I have connections everywhere, and I use them to protect people who can't protect themselves." Dorothy sat in her comfortable living room. Her life made no logical sense by conventional standards. She lived under the protection of a mob boss, working to redirect criminal profits toward legitimate good. But for the first time in 7 years, Dorothy Washington was genuinely, profoundly happy. And that, she decided, was all that truly mattered.